Coming.
Very nice.
That is a little part of a tune I've been working on with my wife, for my wife.
I actually didn't know that.
So a little bit of finger picking thing. Yeah. So today is going to be all about next level finger picking. And
Yes.
The last live lesson we did on this really emphasized rolling.
Yes.
And so does that little tune we just played, mostly rolling throughout the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? So that's kind of the, I guess, the prerequisite to this lesson once you've got some basic, finger picking technique down. I'm getting ahead of myself, Andrew.
A little bit.
This is like the intro. This is still the intro to the lesson, just so you know. So that's the prerequisite once you have some basic finger picking technique with thumb and fingers, and then once you started to learn how to roll, that's like step 2. This would be, I guess, step 3.
Yeah. I'll tell you a secret though.
Okay.
I don't know how to roll. And I'm still going to show you stuff that is finger picking.
Finger picking.
That's why I've got an electric guitar.
Yeah, exactly. Andrew's going to approach this from more of an electric style, fingerstyle standpoint. I'm going to approach it from more of like accompanying yourself if you're singing or playing solo guitar on acoustic, something like that. It doesn't have to be acoustic, it can be electric.
Yeah.
Typically.
It's kind of like what people would traditionally think of when they are moving through the fingerstyle thing. Usually it's acoustic, but guys like John Mayer and Derek Trucks, who are 2 of my idols, have made fingerstyle very cool on the electric using some different techniques. So we're going to talk about that too. I'll quickly mention, we do have a PDF for you guys to download, so you can go ahead and grab that, and that'll have just the exercises we're going through today, I think, right?
I only have one exercise because it's just a little etude between G and C, and it does a lot of constant bass stuff.
An etude. I've never heard that before.
It's a lesson that emphasizes 1 or 2 specific things of technique or something.
Okay. Well, now I know.
Andrew has 2 exercises on there for you. I kind of already showed my first one. So if you've got some basic finger picking technique down, the lesson is starting, by the way.
Before you start, if you do have any questions, you guys can send them in, those of you guys who are members, below the video, right in the box, send it in. Send it to us. At the end, we'll answer some questions if we have some.
It doesn't have to be finger style related, but obviously that's what mode we're in here. So.
Okay, go for it, Nate.
So the rolling thing is the first thing you need to get down. Just P, I, and A, or thumb, index, middle, ring.
PIMA is like a different language labeling, right?
Whatever the Spanish, I think. I believe.
I think you're right. But when you're talking about that, there are labels for each individual finger. Okay.
So get that down forwards and backwards. That's kind of my first baseline. And we're kind of overlapping from the last live lesson we did on fingerstyle. So if you need to go watch that in the archives, that's a great place to start. Or if you want to go through fingerstyle, 1 is basic technique, then 2, pretty sure has some rolling type stuff in it.
I think you're right. Yeah.
That's my first point of interest, and I'll get to the meat of what I want to teach in the next one. But Andrew, let's alternate.
Okay, we're going to alternate. So I don't know how many of you guys have electric guitars that want to learn fingerstyle, but I find it to be one of the kind of cool corners of electric guitar, because when you use your fingers and you abandon the pick, you get a little bit more control and feel over how the strings sound. So it's a cool technique. Anyways, what I'm going to talk about first, in the first example, if you have the PDF, is basically we're just doing triads. So we're just doing little chords, and we're going to pluck them all at one time, all the strings at one time, and we're going to do that kind of like how a piano would. So when you think, I think we talked about this before, but with a guitar, when you strum down, you're going da 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 da, right?
Arpeggiating, really fast arpeggio.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly what you're doing, even if you're strumming really fast. But what we can do when we use all our fingers, I'll try not to let this get too buzzy for you, but. And if it's cleaner, instead of. So that's kind of the idea. So what you're going to do is, it's basically standard fingerstyle kind of technique. You're just going to, I like to find a place to plant. Some people like to plant that pinky, right? And just thumb and fingers. I usually leave the pinky out for most things that I do. And so for this little exercise, we're just going to be using thumb, pointer finger, middle finger, and ring finger. And we're going to leave the pinky out, and we're just going to put them on the top strings. So 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we just line them up all together like this. So, and they're only going to stay on those strings for this entire little exercise. And you can see there's tabs there. And all it is they're moving kind of quick, but it's a G major, B minor, A major, D major, G major, which is also like a 4, 6, 5, 1, 4 in the key of D major. I think I got that right. But the shapes are actually really easy, and it looks a little bit intimidating, but basically what you're doing is you're playing the bottom, or I guess the top part of a bar chord. So when we play like, we can just take the top 4 and just do that. Now I'm barring this up here. If you don't want to bar it, you can actually just leave that top string out completely and just play the 3. But I like to have that, adds a little bit more depth. And that shape is literally the shape we're going to use for this one. This one. This one is where we change it. So the only one that's different is the B minor, because it's a minor chord. So instead of the, we're just going to bar all 3. These bars are a lot easier than like a full bar. Yeah. So even, and this isn't for electric only, this is something I use on acoustic all the time too. But you just do a bar of those top 3 strings there. So a major would be like that, there. And basically we're going from 5th fret here, up to the 9th, down to the 7th, and then all the way up to the 12th, and then all the way back to the 5. And it moves pretty quick the way I have it laid out, but this is just to give you an idea of a chord progression that you could use this for. I like to use it a lot when a chord progression is kind of moving along quickly. So in this case, the way I have it written out, it would go 1, 2, like that. And quite often that wouldn't be played that quick. If you're working on it, here, I'll just put a little gain on there, but you could. Pretty straightforward and simple, but it does move around a lot. But it's easy to count. It's just 1, 2, stay on the 1 for 2 beats, and then 2 beats, 2 beats. And that's all it is. And that's the whole technique. You can do this with any chords, but basically the whole idea is plucking all the strings at once. Now you can't do 6 strings at once. That's not something really that's possible. You can almost do it. But typically you're kind of limiting out at 5. But most of the time, most chords you play, especially when you're playing electric guitar, you're not really doing all 6 strings, right? This is a very brief intro to kind of this stuff. You could really dive into it, but we're not going to get into it anymore. And if you have any further questions on the technique, you can send those in and we'll
I just think of it as like pinching, like a crab.
That's a great way to think of it, actually, because the thing that's nice with this technique, because I'm so bad at this, is I don't really have great independence between these fingers, moving them when I'm doing fingerstyle. As I mentioned, I can't roll. Well, this, when I'm doing it, you can see the motion. There's no independence required. Everything is happening. And then eventually when you get, I mean, you can get the thumb and the fingers independent and then work your way up to the point where I'm not at, which is being able to actually independently use fingers. Yeah, I don't think I can do that. I got independence here, but not on this one.
The thing I like about that is it gets you away from using the 6-string root note as a reference point for your chords.
You do have to, and I should mention, because that's a good point, is that your root note, you either will be paying attention to on the high E string, so, and that obviously matches up with your low E string, so that's a nice point of reference. But if you're not using that note, if you're leaving out the E string, well then your root note is on the D string. And so it's a slightly different spot, right? You have to kind of get to know the names, because you can see, oh, we've got a G major, well that's on the 5th fret of the D string. Most people don't know that's a G, right?
Exactly. Like, yeah, if you adopt this exercise for this week or something, I'd encourage you to make the D string your string of the week to memorize.
Smart. I agree. And all these shapes, like, and by say all these shapes, there's 2 shapes. There's a major and a minor shape. Those shapes you can put on any fret, and whichever like root note you're on, that is the name of that chord. So if you take the little major shape and you put yourself wherever you end up putting yourself, that's a C, that's a little C major, and it's the same shape.
Cool.
Okay, your turn.
My turn. Like up to this point, we're gonna be talking about pattern-based fingerstyle stuff. So not things like where you have to think about independence on your fingers like classical stuff. There's not really a pattern to that. I just memorized it and got it down to the point where I don't have to think about it. Pattern-based stuff is things like rolling, or things like constant bass. Right, it's something that's predictable that you can build a coordination with, so you can, like, in any kind of song that uses that, you're going to have that coordination under your belt. You just have to go through and learn the tune, basically. Right. So that's the cool thing about accompanying somebody with fingerstyle stuff. Once you get a couple of basic things down, it's going to be a lot easier for you if you pursue fingerstyle on a consistent basis, right? So what we're going to do in this one is get into some constant bass ideas with a melody on top. And the first step is to be able to do this.
I can do that.
You literally have to be able to do that blindfolded. And I used to be into fingerstyle a lot more. In college, a lot, but lately not so much. Every time I, learn a fingerstyle piece, it's kind of a sharp learning curve because I haven't done it in a long time. The coordination just is rusty. But that's the first step, and then be able to do that on the low 3 strings. And if you haven't worked on your technique as far as your thumb goes, you're going to want to go through fingerstyle 1 and 2 for sure. Just get to where you can do that, and then hit the E, A, and D strings accurately, consistently. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is to put a melody on top. And it can be something super simple like a whole note, just to start building coordination. So let's put a G chord on, because that's what the first 8 measures of the example we're playing uses a G chord. So if you have this G chord, G note on the 6th string, right? You're going to play quarter notes on there. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the next step is to get that melody note on top. We're just going to play a whole note on this G of the high E string. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? That's all you do. 1, 2, 3, 4. Once you get comfortable doing that, kind of out of time, without a metronome, start trying to loop it. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm using my middle finger. You can use your index finger. Doesn't matter. I just find that the distance between the E's is so big that it's easier for me to grab that with my middle finger.
Right.
So that's the first step, and building that basic coordination is probably the easiest part of this. I hate to say it, but it is probably the easiest part, because the next step is to start doing something like, well, this is pretty easy to do because you're just alternating, right?
Okay.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. But as soon as you start mixing up quarter notes on the beat and then off the beat, it's like something like 1, 1, 2, 3 and 4, 1, something like that. 1, 2, 3 and 4, 1, 2, 3 and 4. That's the tough part. So those are 2 good exercises to do just on the quarter notes with your thumb, and then a whole note with your middle finger. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then maybe try 1, 2, 3, 4, and 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 1, 2. So on the 1 and the and of 4, or any and, pick any and of any number. So you can do the and of 2, 1 and 2. Sorry, 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2 and 3, 4. Just get used to putting it on an and. It's probably the hardest coordination in this lesson to build, is playing on the ands. But if you look at the PDF sheet music, the first 4 measures are nothing but, well, the first 3 measures are nothing but whole notes. We're just going to be moving the melody around and keeping a constant bass going with our thumb. So 1, 2, 3, 4, just quarter notes.
Right.
With our thumb, and then a whole note on that high E string. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we have to move our pinky over. Or you can make the G like this, it doesn't matter. You have to move your pinky over and play the 3rd fret of the B string and do the exact same thing as far as the rhythm goes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you have an open B string. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I would recommend getting just those 3 measures down by themselves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Just do that over and over. And what I'm trying to sneakily do is to build some coordination and dexterity for keeping basic patterns going on the guitar with your thumb, and then making melodies up on top. You can put any melody you want on top, you're just gonna have to build a coordination to do it with whatever time you hear in your head or whatever song you have. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Next measure is this. So you have on the 1, on the and of 2, and then on the 4. So
that requires a little coordination there.
And you're gonna have to slow it down 1 and 2 and 3, 4. Okay.
Nice.
Hope that makes sense. It'll be actually 1, 2, 3 on the floor. So that's the basic idea with this one, is to just get that first phrase down. There you go. And that's it. The hardest thing is going to be when you get to that syncopated part, when you have that on the 1, sorry, that and of 2, 4. And all I'm doing is playing. So maybe separate the challenge out first. Do this. 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. It's hard to count and play that at the same time. So just do the melody. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, then put it with the bass. But basically what you're doing is you're accompanying yourself, right? So it almost feels like you're playing a piano, which is great. To me, that's one of the main areas and types of fingerstyle that you could do. The next 4 bars are the exact same thing. So just play the exact same thing. And then you're gonna move, when you get to this part, you're gonna move to a C chord and keep your constant bass going for just 4 measures on the C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have to make sure your aim is good with your thumb to hit that C. And I was gonna put in some more syncopated stuff here, but I figured that was enough in the first 2 systems of the music to get you developed with that, or started anyway. So this one I made all whole notes over the C. So it's gonna be actually a C major 7 chord.
Okay.
Because you have an open B major or open B string. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then the next measure, you have the 2nd fret of the G string, which is an A. 2, 3, 4. Then the open G string. 1, 2, 3, 4. And back to the A. 2nd fret of the G. 3, 2, 3. Crap. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's it. You have to slow this way down. This is the thing about fingerstyle. It's frustrating if you don't do it quite a lot, because you can build a coordination and kind of lose it, and build a coordination and kind of lose it. But if you keep going and learn more and more songs, it's going to get ingrained in you a lot better. So that whole C section would be. Then for the last 4 measures, I just have G for constant bass for 2 measures. So it's really easy at the end. 2 measures each time you're hitting a whole note on top that's tied to another whole note in the next measure. Constant bass. Do it again. And it just starts over. That was a little bit fast, but that's the basic coordination that you need to really focus on getting down. And once you start doing that, get really creative with the melody and see if you can dress it up a little bit. I might crash and burn in this, but okay. And basically, you're building the coordination. You need to improvise anything you want to make it a lot easier to learn fingerstyle songs. The next step, I was tempted to do another exercise on this one, like for a little bit more advanced.
Right.
Want to push it, but I left it out because I didn't want to overwhelm anybody or frustrate anybody who's trying to get into the next level of fingerstyle. But all the next level of this would just be alternating. Just alternating your thumb on bass notes and just getting that coordination down. And you'd think it'd be easy because you're still doing the same motion, but putting that in there makes it a lot harder.
I'm not saying
it makes
it's
it
easy.
twice as hard, I would say.
Yeah, that's some good math.
So if you have any questions on that, like the best advice other than like developing the basic coordination, the basic techniques, is just start learning songs.
Yeah,
and learn songs to reinforce the techniques and patterns that you've already learned.
I concur. Mm-hmm. Okay, are you done your example?
I'm done.
Okay, I'll do my last example here. While I'm doing this, again, guys, if you have any questions, you can feel free to send them in. I do see one or two in there, but if we don't have more, then we don't have more, and that's totally fine. Okay, cool. So if you look at example number 2 on the PDF under electric fingerstyle examples, it's gonna scare the heck out of you because the timing of everything looks really intimidating. And when I notated it out, I didn't realize it was gonna be this ridiculous. But it's really easy when you kind of listen to what the lick sounds like in context. Now, one of the things that I love is Derek Trucks' guitar playing. I don't know if you guys are Derek Trucks fans. He's a brilliant player. He mainly plays slide. Now, I don't play slide. It's not really my thing. But I've adopted a very similar little lead guitar technique that he uses where he uses his fingers. And it creates a very different, it's almost more percussive maybe. I'm not sure how to explain it.
It's very meaty.
It's super meaty. And we'll go over why exactly it is because there's a little trick to it, which has to do with muting adjacent strings and still hitting those strings on purpose. But I'll show you the right hand technique here. So, or left hand, if you're left-handed, that's okay too. So what it's gonna be is we won't look at the lick right away, but we're gonna use our middle finger. We're gonna kind of use our middle finger and the 2 beside it, depending on what we're playing. But it's really, the important thing is to like relax your hand a lot. And the technique is, it's this. So it looks really weird, but all you're doing is you're using basically all 3 fingers, but the middle finger being the accurate and important one. And that's all you're doing, you're just... It seems like it makes no sense at all, but if I have some gain on... So that's the idea, right? So you kind of get that sound because I'm hitting... And it's a really weird technique to kind of get down, and it really hurts. Like even now, I don't use it a lot, and I haven't been playing as much as I should have, and it already hurts my fingers. But that's the technique that he uses, and it creates a very, very distinct, different sound. Again, he uses slide a lot, almost on every song, I think, in the stuff that he plays. But for this little lick we're gonna do, obviously we're not gonna play slide. So one other thing we're gonna add in is, I guess you call it dead notes. And what that does, kind of this style, is again, it adds like a little bit of percussiveness. And I do kind of a more exaggerated like country style version of it when I'm doing like.
Yeah.
Adding those little clicks and clacks in.
That's the name of my parents' 2 chickens.
Really?
2 of them, click and clack. No
Click
lie.
and clack?
True story.
There you go. Beautiful reference. So you can see on the second little measure there, we've got an X on that string. And that refers to, when we get there, we're going to do one of those. And this is, again, this lick is not something that you're necessarily going to want to, I'm going to steal this lick and it's going to be a lick I use all the time. It's more of a, hey, here's an idea of how I can incorporate this technique, and you can kind of mold and change the lick to kind of be whatever you want it to be. So I'm going to get Nate to play the rhythm part. I'll show you again what it is. So it's the same, I'm going to get him to play the same rhythm part as example 1. So it's this. Again. One more time. So you can see there's a lot of little like staccato little things added in, but I'm using that technique, and for the most part I'm just using my fingers, but when I do go down onto lower strings, I am getting the thumb in there a little bit too. So it's kind of this, if I play it nice and slow without Nate there, we go. So that little slide, and it's a pull-off, but you don't have to play it as a pull-off. And then, that's the dead note there. And you can play if you want, or you can play, or you can play, or you can play.
You're muting that with your pinky mostly?
I'm using my pinky. You can use your ring finger too, whatever's most comfortable, but I like to use that because then I also have that one up there. So everything's always muted so that if I ever do, while I'm kind of licking around, if I do ever want to hit the other strings for whatever reason, I can get a click on all of them. Cool. It's kind of the idea. And this is something that I've kind of more just developed just from playing live and not thinking about it, and then it just kind of morphed into this. But what I'll do is I'm going to do the same lick again. I'm going to get Nate to play the same thing again, and I'm going to show you how you can use this technique. I'm going to play the lick, and then the next time I'm going to kind of play the same lick, but I'm going to use it more as a reference and kind of noodle off of it so you can kind of see how you can kind of build on this. All I'm really using is like, what is it? It's like a B minor pentatonic scale. It's nothing that crazy. So again, it's. Anyways, so you can kind of play around with that technique, and one thing that I would just encourage you to do is not overuse it. It's one of those things like all that clicking and stuff is cool, but I've heard players sometimes just go a little too hard on it and it's just like it's like, okay, I understand what you're trying to do, I get it. The idea is just to kind of get an idea of what the technique sounds like. And this is kind of, again, something that also John Mayer likes to use. So if you like that style, he does a less aggressive version of it where when I'm plucking those strings, I'm plucking like as hard as I can. And the reason is to get that really, really bright attack. But when you get someone like John Mayer doing it, it's a lot more smooth, but it's really the same technique. But it's the same idea, a lot of that kind of stuff. So play around with your fingers, even those of you guys who are kind of more into lead guitar and electric. And I know one guy mentioned he was really into like blues fingerstyle. Blues fingerstyle is kind of a hybrid of both of what we're talking about a little bit. So maybe eventually we'll talk about that too.
Yeah, I noticed in the forum there's a lot of people clamoring for like blues and delta blues.
Which is beyond me, I don't even know that stuff.
But the fingerstyle stuff like that, you just apply like the same principles that had in the example. Put a 7th chord on, or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, put a 7th chord on and choose your notes just to be more bluesy, and that'll get you kind of the same direction.
Okay.
Only more delta E.
That makes sense. Should we jump into some questions then?
Yep, for sure.
I'm just gonna move this so I can.
Matthew in the chat says, will there be any other fingerstyle lessons in the future? Yes.
Oh yeah.
For live stuff, it kind of depends what I'm into at the moment, but there's a lot of fingerstyle courses planned all the way up to like 6 or 7. 1 and 2 are already out, I believe. And then Don Ross's lesson is being edited as we speak, or lessons, the Mountain of Lessons.
And that'll kind of satiate all of you more advanced fingerstyle guys.
That'll be like middle, intermediate to advanced.
Yeah. Okay. First question. This one is from Pia-Jutsu. Is there a difference between fingerstyle and Travis picking? If so, what is it?
Travis picking is just like a subgenre of fingerstyle. Travis picking is when you have the same. When you have alternating bass on the bottom?
Yeah. So that's just Travis picking?
Yeah. Okay. It's just when you have alternating bass with a melody on top.
Yeah. Commonly, I think I've seen when I look at Travis pickers, they'll oftentimes use a thumb pick.
Thumb pick, yeah. I have one in here. I usually have one in my little, oh, I do. I have one. And the reason for that, reason for a thumb pick is so you can get this noise.
Oh.
Instead of, the constant ring out. It's a lot easier.
You can kind of get
Because you can get your wrist.
That.
Yeah, it's just easier to hit it.
Oh, I didn't know that.
There you go.
Cool. Next one here, this is from Bean Jammin'. Hey, Nate and Andrew, do you guys have any drills that you recommend for working on rolling? I know I don't have any exercises for you. I have a pretty good foundation for the constant bass, and I can do basic melodies underneath, but still have some problems rolling the chords.
Okay. Yeah, you did, Benjamin, you did the intermediate version of Tour of the World, which is like,
Right.
What is it?
You said it would get brought up.
Yeah, I know. I was like, I bet that's going to get brought up today. But yeah, that's really good. You have that basic coordination now to do that. That's awesome. To me, that's harder than rolling, so that's good news for you. The first thing that I would do is do this. Thumb, fingers on top. Doesn't matter what bass note you're is. As a matter of fact, I just alternate between low E string, then fingers on top. Then A string, fingers on top. D string, fingers on top. Just alternate between those. You build up some basic coordination. It's more efficient than doing like this, right? Just in one finger at a time. This is what I do. Like if I haven't played fingerstyle in a while and I need to do some serious rolling for a gig or something, this is the exercise I start with. Once it's feeling pretty good, I start rolling up, alternating. If you can't alternate on your thumb, the bass note, just keep it on the low E string. Be very slow and deliberate at first, like overly deliberate. Even if you can play faster. Then start trying to do alternating bass. And I'm going through this way faster than I normally would. Once you get that, after a day, 2 weeks or 2, add rolling down. So start on your third finger, third, second, first thumb. Then alternate bass. Let me put a chord on here, maybe. And once that's feeling good, up and down. So. But like my number one go-to exercise for that before anything is this.
Okay.
Build strength and coordination without having to think too much about. And I would say also, if you play with nails, be very aware of where your fingers are hitting on the string. Just a little bit of skin before it hits the nail. If you get too much skin on there, it's gonna be hard to get through. So that's what I would do. Like that's really the only exercises for rolling I've ever done. So. And I'm not, like my fingerstyle is not up to par now, I'll guarantee you that. But like just spending a day or two. I did that this morning because I knew I was going to have to do fingerstyle tonight or this evening.
I mean, that's mesmerizing to watch, honestly.
It's a very useful tool to have, and even like doing it with pick.
Hybrid picking, yeah.
It's very useful. Like super, like for accompanying things, or if you're playing with another guitar player or piano player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, next question here. This one is from C Drive. Hi guys, I don't have any nails. Is it worth trying the Dunlop plastic nails or any metal finger picks?
Metal finger picks sound really abrasive on an acoustic guitar. I've rarely seen people use. They do make plastic picks. That might be what you're talking about with fingerstyle. Those sound good. They look just like the same style as the metal picks. You know, they will kind of come out like this. But they don't sound really abrasive. They sound more like a real nail, so that's probably what I would recommend doing. But I had a really bad week last week for nails, and I ended up having to chop most of mine off because they were just gnarled because I wasn't keeping up with them because I haven't been playing much fingerstyle lately.
Yeah.
So my thumbnails looks normal. It looks almost gone.
It does.
And my index finger looks normal. It looks almost gone. These two are a little bit short, but they're not what they should be either. So I'm playing, except for with this finger, this third finger, I'm playing with almost all skin in this lesson, which is it's really, very tough for me. I'm used to having fingernails, so try everything. If you play with just your skin, that's fine, but you have to do it on a consistent basis. Otherwise, it gets soft and it gets hard it gets really just mushy feeling and sounding. You might like a more melatonin if you don't want to play with your skin, but playing often, just to keep a little bit of a callus on there will help you a lot. But experiment with nails. If you have thin nails and you like that sound, that sharper sound, just try those. I forget. I'll try to post it in the forum as far as a link to those. Look up Doc Watson on YouTube. He has some videos on there where he's just using. He's a freaking psychotic, man. He does the most insane Travis picking stuff in the world. And he only uses these two fingers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out too.
I can't even do it. It's nuts.
I don't use any nails. I'm not really like a big finger picker in the traditional sense, but I prefer the sound of no nails, especially on electric. Electric finger picking, I think sounds better with the pads of your fingers. That's an opinion though. Yeah, I don't suggest, again, metal is for banjo, typically, right? Yeah. We got a last one here from
Banjo and dobro, sorry.
Oh, and what's dobro?
Dobro.
Oh, yeah. Like a kind of like resonator, yeah. Okay. This one is from Bearcat Bright. Hey Nate and Andrew, I find myself dropping my pinky down on my guitar as a bass when I play fingerstyle. I'm pretty sure that you would want me to not anchor my pinky but let it float over the strings. Am I right?
No, I'd say do whatever you're most comfortable with. Try both, because I play classical guitar, right? So I'd say I'm the exception to the rule. Most people anchor. I can't really do it. I can anchor it with my whatever this is, my wrist on the bridge of my guitar a little bit. Sometimes I do that when I need more volume. But sometimes I just can't do this. It's something I never did. My dad plays this way. But I just can't do it because I've never done it. I learned to play fingerstyle like this. Doesn't matter though, it's just whatever you're comfortable with. I would try all three of those ways. Wrist anchored on the bridge, pinky on the top of the guitar, float it, and do whatever works best for you. But give all of them a shot because you never know what's going to feel more comfortable for you.
Tons of great players that do the anchoring thing. I like to anchor my palm, and I always notice when you do it, you like to do a little floaty thing.
If I'm playing with a pick though,
oh yeah, true.
My wrist is anchored on the bridge of the guitar all the time.
It's very true.
So it just depends.
Yeah. Okay, no more questions. So let's see if we can play something out. You're talking about, you're going to do the exercise,
I'll play
right?
the little exercise, and Andrew will play some stuff over the top of it, and we'll see what happens. This is just, this is what you do if you come up with something and you have a friend that plays guitar, just invite him over and jam and see what happens, right?
Sometimes cool stuff gets born out of it, right?
Yeah, I just hope I remember how this thing goes. Let's see.
Good luck.
I'm not even going to look.
Okay.